Seoul. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Monday that he will meet with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in May or early June, cementing a timeline for the summit, which Mr. Trump says will be a very exciting thing for the world. Now, Mr. Kim also broke silence by publicly acknowledging for the first time North Korea's plans for a dialogue with the U.S. And before I sit down with an expert to talk more about this, we first head over to the News Center, where Devin Whiting has the latest headlines at this hour. Hello, Devin.
Hi, Gio. In our top story this afternoon, South Korea's Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa held talks with her Japanese counterpart, Taro Kono, at Seoul's Foreign Ministry this morning, with the focus on bilateral relations and the North Korea nuclear issue. The two sides discussed a great deal of ways to develop their ties, including through culture, economic exchanges, and human resources. They also reaffirmed that the next few months will be a significant period in solving the North Korea nuclear issue, and that the two sides will closely cooperate on that. After an hour of talks, Kono visited the Seoul National Cemetery, a move seen as a gesture of respect to the host nation and its people. And after meeting with President Moon Jae-in at Cheongwon-dae, Kono will join Minister Kang again for a dinner closed to the press. With the Inter-Korean Summit coming up in less than 3 weeks, North Korea's rubber-stamp parliament was set to hold a key meeting today. The Supreme People's Assembly has been used before to send messages to the outside world, for example, about the regime's nuclear program. Eyes will be on whether anything comes out related to either the summit with South Korea or the one with the U.S. Lee Seung-jae reports.
What messages could North Korea send to South Korea and the U.S. ahead of its summits with them? With North Korea's rubber-stamp parliament set to hold the 6th session of its 13th Supreme People's Assembly on Wednesday, that question may just be answered. The Supreme People's Assembly is the highest organ of state power under the North's constitution that rubber-stamps decisions by the ruling Workers' Party. Its plenary session, held every April, mainly deals with budget issues and personnel reshuffles. However, this year's meeting is getting more attention due to the possibility the isolated state may send a message to the outside world ahead of the summits during what's usually an internal political event. A local expert says the meeting could be used to back Kim Jong-un's willingness to improve ties with the South or even seek a peace regime and the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The North has previously used its meetings to clarify its stance on its nuclear programs. In particular, at a parliamentary meeting in April 2012, the North stipulated in the preamble of its constitution that the country is a nuclear state. In the following year, the Assembly adopted a law codifying its possession of nuclear weapons for self-defense, at the same time consolidating its status as a nuclear weapon state. The meeting will also be highlighted by personnel reshuffles, as experts say the regime is likely to change officials at key posts of the State Affairs Commission and other organs to reflect the latest changes in the makeup of cabinet and military officials. Among the notable changes, North Korea may replace Kim Young-nam, the 90-year-old president of the SPA Presidium and the nominal head of state, in order to seek active diplomacy to improve relations with Seoul and Washington. Meanwhile, according to the North state-run media, Kim Jong-un has acknowledged the prospect of talks with Washington in his first official mention of the planned summit with President Trump. The Korean Central News Agency also said Kim delivered a report on the development of the recent situation on the Korean Peninsula, which includes the Inter-Korean Summit on April 27th. Observers hope the North's recent openness may be a prelude to finally achieving peace on the Korean Peninsula, as the world continues to watch the nation's every move. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
South Korean President Moon Jae-in met today at the Blue House with the chairman of the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, who invited President Moon to next year's Davos Forum. And Schwab proposed that Korea be at the center of the activities and discussions to take place in Davos. Here he is this morning.
And I would like to congratulate you for the promising beginnings of the dialogue which you have with the North. And I want also to offer you the full support of the World Economic Forum for this process, which is so important for the whole world.
In particular, he pledged to provide support for economic stability in North Korea, noting that stability in the North will become imperative. President Moon thanked Schwab for the invitation and expressed hope that South Korea and the World Economic Forum can cooperate in areas related to the Fourth Industrial Revolution. The South Korean government has earmarked billions of dollars to do something about stubbornly high unemployment. But the jobs figures for March actually show things getting worse. Unemployment was up overall and for young people at a new record high. So Bo-bin reports.
Another gloomy month for job seekers in South Korea. Data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday shows the overall jobless rate in the country was 4.5% in March, up 0.4 percentage points from a year earlier, and logging the highest monthly rate for March in 17 years. The number of unemployed Koreans, over 1.2 million, continues a trend seen for 3 consecutive months, with the figure remaining above the 1 million mark. The youth unemployment rate is more disheartening. Data shows 11.6% of young Koreans between the ages of 15 to 29 were classified as unemployed in March, the highest rate since March 2016. Government efforts to solve the problem have yet to bear fruit in any substantial way. Earlier this month, the government proposed a $3.7 billion supplementary budget, largely aimed at creating more jobs for young people. This is the second extra budget bill of its kind under the relatively young Moon Jae-in administration, following the $10 billion supplementary budget that was approved last year. But with the country's rival parties deadlocked over contentious issues like the extra budget and amending the constitution, it looks as though the country will have to wait for the extra funds, at least until the parties can strike a deal. So Bo-bin, Arirang News.
Chinese President Xi Jinping said this week that Beijing will open up to more imports of cars and more foreign investment in the auto industry. U.S. President Donald Trump hours later thanked him for what he called the Chinese leader's kind words. Stock markets got a boost from that exchange, but the dispute over tariffs is expected to continue. Kwon Jang-ho reports.
President Trump has continued to express his friendly relations with Xi Jinping after he took to Twitter on Tuesday to thank the Chinese leader for, quote, kind words on tariffs and automobile barriers. Despite recent trade disputes, he declared that they will make great progress together. This was in response to President Xi's speech at an economic forum on Tuesday, where he pledged to reduce limits on foreign investments in manufacturing, particularly in cars. This concession by the Chinese president has put the brakes on a tariff war between Washington and Beijing that had started to build steam in recent weeks. The markets responded, with the Dow climbing almost 1.8% on Tuesday, and shares in Ford and General Motors also saw spikes of 1.8 and 3.3% respectively. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index and Shanghai's Composite Index rallied 1.7% as well. However, some analysts warned that President Xi's comments offered little in substantive changes, and the White House spokesperson also gave a more tempered response later in the day.
Certainly, we are encouraged by President Xi's words and his kind words, but at the same time, we want to see concrete actions from China, and we're going to continue moving forward in the process and in the negotiations until those happen.
There were further signs of a continued bumpy road ahead after the World Trade Organization also revealed on Tuesday that China had made an official complaint over Washington's tariff hike on imported steel and aluminium. 60 days of consultations with the US has been requested, and if that fails, Beijing is likely to ask the WTO for a ruling from a panel of trade experts. Kwon Jang-ho, Arirang News.
I'm Devin Whiting, and those are your news headlines for this hour.
Things are moving along for the historic summit between the American president and the North Korean strongman. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un officially brought up the meetings with the South and the U.S. during his session with the Workers' Party Political Bureau on Monday. Now, although its intentions are unclear, Seoul's Unification Ministry sees it as a positive sign. Our Lee Ji-won has more.
With 2 historic summits ahead, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un chaired a key meeting earlier this week. The Politburo of the Workers' Party of Korea held a meeting on Monday, and it's the first time such a meeting has been reported in 3 years. Kim Jong-un, the chairman of the party and of the State Affairs Commission, mentioned the recent developments on the Korean peninsula as one of the topics, according to Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday. Kim said the inter-Korean talks will be held at the House of Peace in the southern side of the truce village of Panmunjom on April 27th, the first time the details of the summit have been reported within Pyongyang. And along with giving an in-depth analysis of the inter-Korean summit, Kim also mentioned the prospect of U.S.-North Korea talks, officially acknowledging the possible meeting for the first time. Kim delivered the strategic and tactical issues the party must focus on, including policies on international relations. Seoul's Unification Ministry said that the report and its mentioning of the upcoming summit was something to keep an eye on. A ministry official met with reporters on Tuesday and said that it was unusual for Kim to mention the upcoming talks. He added that the report addressed Kim's possible meeting with the U.S. President Donald Trump as a dialogue instead of a summit, as the two sides are still working on making it happen. Though the intentions and meaning of the reporting of the meeting cannot be known, the Unification Ministry official said the report on the politically significant meeting could itself be meaningful. 이지원, Arirang News.
And to tell us more about this, Professor Jong-un from Aaju University joins us in the studio today. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here.
All right, so it looks like President Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un will be meeting each other sometime in May or early June, like we heard in the report. Now, it's interesting, though, that President Trump put a rubber stamp on this timeline when it was actually the same day that John Bolton, his new national security advisor, was to assume office. So what can we make of this?
It is actually a very interesting gesture of the President Trump. And I think the message was clear that he is in charge of this whole development. He will not be driven, I quote, by his advisors, especially State Department. And his style of talking and style of interaction with his advisor is quite similar to the way he did when he was CEO of the company. So if we put that scenario or situation into a private corporate setting, it's very normal that on the first day of hiring a board member, the CEO announced that his vision and his direction, and others will have to listen and adjust themselves to continue their employment.
Trump is definitely a businessman there.
That's right.
But then how might Trump's new top diplomats, including John Bolton, affect the upcoming summit between Trump and Kim, considering that many of them are actually hardliners when it comes to dealing with North Korea?
There's very important implication there. Even though I said that John Bolton and others will realize that he is now working for the President, U.S. President Donald Trump, they will carry a very vivid memory and experience of past negotiation, which has failed. So he will be reminded constantly on his negotiation with North Korea in coming weeks and months that if those gestures and messages from North Korea can repeat the same unsuccessful experiences of past negotiation. So it puts a hard burden on North Korea's side and others that the messages and actions and proposals have to be genuine, and repetition of past schemes will not work.
I mean, it seems that Mr. Trump is quite stern on his stance that those sanctions will stay, the pressure will stay, but he welcomes talking with Kim Jong-un, right?
Indeed, I think he's actually channeling all possibilities into the one direction that he wants to go. The continuation of very tough sanctions at the moment and hiring of John Bolton and others, and actually close down all other possibilities for North Korea and others that I want my way. And this is the way I will deal with.
Now, going back to the timing or the timeline issue, President Trump has said before that this Trump-Kim summit might happen sometime within May, but now June is on the options list as well. So what could have been some of the reasons behind such a delay, I guess?
I guess it's very normal. I myself was once working on the negotiation between two countries and others. And working on deadline or pin down a venue and date is one of the most difficult tasks to do. it also reflects that the decision of this summit when Jong-un visited Washington was made rather unexpectedly. It reflects spontaneous nature of this decision. So setting the clock from that moment, arranging all these summits, including security and everything, by the end of May was close to mission impossible. So extending a week or two, I think is very normal.
Understandable.
Yeah, understandable indeed.
All right. Now, as for the location of this upcoming summit between Trump and Kim, Ulaanbaatar, which is the capital of Mongolia, has been high on the list. I mean, we heard from CNN reports that Kim Jong-un actually wanted to hold this summit in Pyongyang, but then they found that Ulaanbaatar may be the best neutral ground for this to happen. So have there been any past cases where we saw summits take place somewhere other than where the leaders are from?
Actually, the first round of negotiation of two parties, which are considered as hostile, hardly take place in one of the capitals of two parties. Picking up the example of Palestine-Israel peace talk.
Okay.
You can imagine Israel-Palestine, the tension, level of tension, very, very high. Against all the wishes of hosting either in Jerusalem or Ramallah, the first meeting took place in Madrid in 1991. And after 2 years of discussion, it moved to Oslo, Norway, and it continued about 3-4 years. And the famous Oslo occurred when they signed a deal to agree to set up a two-state in Palestine territory, was in Oslo as well. So the place of neutrality often become a venue for the meeting. Now we have to see which are the place of neutrality, excluding Pyongyang and Seoul, Beijing, Tokyo, or Moscow or Vladivostok.
And the U.S.
And the U.S. has its pros and cons, and it gives some upper hand and a lower hand to a certain party. So Ulaanbaatar was interesting idea to me. But that reflects they want to find a place of neutrality.
And I heard that Ulaanbaatar kind of was aware of this, I guess, but then try to keep it low-key before the summit because of many security issues, obviously, too.
Indeed, and it will be, I'm still skeptical whether Ulaanbaatar will be an actual venue.
Okay.
My personal wish will be in our territory, place like Jeju, which we promote as a place of neutrality. Could be a very exciting venue, but we'll see.
Okay, well, let's talk about the agenda now. I mean, where do the two sides stand when it comes to denuclearization, the U.S. and North Korea?
Well, if we give North Korea 100 years to denuclearize themselves, I think the chance is very high. They will sign if they have 100 years.
Right.
But Donald Trump, if we ask North Korea to complete its job within 2 years, meaning ahead of re-election of Donald Trump next year, most likely they will decline.
Okay.
So it will be a negotiation between 2 years and 100 years. And what's between? U.S. made it clear that they want complete, verifiable, and irreversible process or denuclearization process. North Korea, to my best knowledge, has not mentioned anything specific in terms of denuclearizing themselves. So one side already put down their terms and conditions. Others are now defining themselves how to start the process and let it go and get something what they want and eventually agree on the same goal. So interesting time.
Right, but I mean, we're definitely hoping that things will be different this time compared to, I guess, Kim Jong-un's father and his grandfather times. But I mean, what are the chances, though, that North Korea would again demand for more economic aid and more security, especially from the U.S., and also less sanctions, I guess, because it's under enormous sanctions right now internationally. So what are the chances that North Korea would make these demands in return for denuclearization?
I think it's almost certain that North Korea is now very busy in putting down or creating a list of their demand in terms of economic package. And to my best knowledge, U.S. and South Korean government and also try to have a package approach linking the nuclear issues and security issues with economic returns. Of course, it's a matter of proportionality, matter of sequencing and prioritization. For North, they want to get something in their pocket first before they initiate the process of denuclearization. That was exactly the agreement of the past.
Right.
So U.S. is unlikely to agree,
repeat that mistake.
repeat that mistake. So it has to be at least a simultaneous action, if not more weight on security side. And my sense is that North Korea, facing such a harsh economic situation coming from sanctions, will be left with very few options in terms of creating its own demand without considering the request and demand from U.S. and South Korea.
Now, North Korea's Supreme People's Assembly, its rubber stamp parliament, opened today, and eyes are on what kind of policies may come out of that meeting, especially with these important summits coming up involving North Korea.
My expectation, given the nature of this summit, it's actually an annual summit that deals with everyday business for a country, such as reviewing the budget and approve the policy priorities for next year and what will be our priority outcome we need to achieve, all of that. So given the normal nature of this summit, mentioning two things I take back. Participation of Kim Jong-un on this meeting is a sign, because he doesn't attend every time. He attends 6 out of 8 in the past. And then more interestingly, mentioning something of this nature, either summit between North and South or the summit between US and North, will be a very interesting and important signal that he's not afraid of this become a public, because that's expectation high.
Okay.
Because failure to achieve certain outcome out of this summit, which has been announced in public, will put him a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So he seems to be confident that something will be coming out of this
Determined
too. Yes,
to get
exactly.
something out of this.
Exactly.
And now, senior Chinese diplomat Sung Tao is also set to visit Pyongyang with a large-scale performing squad to Pyongyang on Friday. Now, what are the chances that Kim Jong-un might meet with this Chinese diplomat? Because this is the first of its kind after Chinese President Xi Jinping and Kim Jong-un met late last month.
Suddenly, Pyongyang has become a very popular venue for cultural events.
Yeah.
Given the paucity of such event in past 10 years is interesting. And the fact that Chinese has chosen to send their cultural delegation is also very interesting. Instead of military delegation, economic delegation, they choose cultural delegation. So I think the message is very, very subtle. We are with you in principles, but with certain terms and conditions. Therefore, China is with North Korea, but don't rock the boat at this time.
Now, we know that Ri Yong-ho, North Korea's top diplomat, and also former chief of North Korea's delegation to the six-party talks, went to Russia to meet with his counterpart. And obviously, you can see how Pyongyang's diplomatic offensive is continuing for sure before these summits. So what came out of the meeting there?
I think the most important meeting's outcome is acceptance of Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs to visit Pyongyang. Didn't mention the timing, but it gave a clear signal that Russia wants to have a good seat on the table. And Pyongyang also wants to bring global attention on Pyongyang, indicating or signifying that the world goes around the Pyongyang's clock.
Right. It needs to have its strong allies on its shoulders when it goes into that big room with the U.S.
Exactly.
Right.
And that put somehow interesting pressure on U.S. Because North Korea is very busy visiting Moscow, Beijing, and others, inviting those delegations, ministers, and culture team. On the other hand, U.S. has been playing rather solo. Best partner is South Korea.
Right.
But sooner or later, we can expect U.S. will also drum up its partners, such as Japan and South Korea.
All right. Well, for now, we'll see how the preparations go for the Trump-Kim summit, as well as the April 27th Inter-Korean summit.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And that brings us to the end of our program, but make sure to tune into Arirang News for more domestic and global news updates throughout the day. Thanks for watching and goodbye.
A call for peace on the peninsula from Germany. A nation that has unified first.
우리 정부는 아시아에서 이어지는 이 소중한 축제들을 한반도의 평화, 동북아와 세계의 평화를 만들어가는 계기로 만들 것을 북한에 제안합니다.
The first Olympics on the peninsula in 30 years. Miraculously, the visit to the north by the special envoy takes place, creating another chance at peace.
남과 북은 4월 말 판문점 평화의 집에서 제3차 남북 정상회담을 개최하기로 했으며
April 2018. South North Korea summit. A historic first step to change begins. Arirang.
South and North Korea are stronger when we are together. The historic moments and the wave of peace created by one Korea stunned the world. The melody of hope sung together and the energetic reconciliation brought the spring of peace to the Korean peninsula. We are one Korea.